Hi, I'm Julianne Holland, and I'm glad I caught your attention because if you're watching this right now, I will no longer be here. I'll have gone. And there's things I thought were really important to be said before I left this planet Earth, and they really need to be, this information needs to be shared. And I think if it was shared earlier in my life, things might have been different for me. That being said, I don't have any regrets, and I've had an excellent quality of life up to now. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 2.5 years ago. It was breast cancer, the aggressive type of breast cancer that went into my liver. So after several surgeries and going to a Mexican clinic and getting my health back substantially, I went and lived my dream. So I'm actually happy with what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years, and as you can see, I'm doing pretty good right now. Almost symptom-free. Sometimes I get tired, but I didn't know that about cancer. I thought, oh, well, if you have cancer, it's a horrible disease, and I know it can be a horrible disease, but I also know that some people live right up to the end of their days riding their bike, which is what I hope to keep doing, and living a full life. So I wanted to share that initially, but I also have things that I found out along the way on my journey which were really important to me, and if I had known these things earlier on, it might have been life-changing for me. So I want that information out. And that being said, I'm not a doctor, and I am going to make recommendations because I can. That's one of the fun things about doing this show. So I'd like to say, first of all, that obviously there's some basic things that everybody knows. There's a cancer epidemic. 1 in 3 women is predicted to get cancer. 1 in 2 men. It's pretty amazing. But those are the statistics right now. What people don't know is that the cancer death rates have not changed in 50 years. So we're still doing slash and burn techniques, and forgive me if some of you have done that and it's helped you. That's good. I'm glad you got through it. And I don't want to totally diss that, but at the same time, 50 years with all the technological advances we've had with no change in the rates of cancer survival is pretty sad. In fact, chemo has a 3% efficacy rate, meaning if you do nothing, you have 3% less chance of survival, meaning if you do chemo, you have 3% more chance of survival if you do nothing. So even if you were to change your diet, which doctors will not tell you to do because they're not nutritionists, I'm telling you because I can, you need to change your diet. Even if you change your diet, you have a better chance of surviving than if you did chemo. So that's just basic math. Cancer feeds off sugar. Getting rid of the carbs and getting rid of the sugar is important. But I'm not here to tell you all the things you need to do to help yourself survive, because there's other books and other resources for that. I wanted to mention a few of those. But one of the main things I wanted to tell you is some of the harder information. It's taken me hundreds of hours of research to figure out some of the information that I didn't have access to in the books, and that was extremely important in deciding what kind of protocol to use. I did several natural protocols actually, but I wasn't sure why they weren't working. But before I get to that part of the story, I just want to mention a few resources there. One resource that was extremely helpful to me, and you're probably wondering, why should I listen to you if you're dead? And I'm telling you actually why, and I'll get to that, is because I didn't have this missing piece, which if I even had it a year ago would have made a huge difference for me. So I think people would need to know this. Also people who have autism or autoimmune disorders, because this piece of information affects all kinds of diseases, including AIDS patients and Lyme victims, which I also had been a victim of. This one book here, Stop Fighting Cancer, is a good one. This one is by Kevin Connors. This is one of many books I read. I didn't bring in all my books. One book I love is Flood Your Body with Oxygen by Ed Mccabe. And if you can't remember him and you don't have a pen to write with, you can get a pen, but if you don't have a pen, remember his name, Ed Mccabe. If you can't remember his name, remember the oxygen guy. If you Google the oxygen guy, his name will come up, and his book, which is about this thick, will come up. So fascinating, all the things you can do with oxygen therapies, including things like hydrogen peroxide and things you can do at home. And there's products, this amazing wealth of information around oxygen therapies and ozone therapy, which is different. Ozone is O3 instead of O2. I'll say a little bit more of that in a moment. The other thing about resources I would recommend, and even if you don't have money, because a lot of people think, well, I'd love to do these protocols, but I don't have money. CancerTutor.com has some really what they call dirt cheap protocols, which are amazing. And I will get to exactly what happened for me in my story and why some worked and some didn't work and how that goes down. But before I do want to say something about chemo again. 75% of the doctors that were interviewed in the United States about chemotherapy were asked if they would do chemotherapy if they got ill with cancer, and 75% said they would not. They wouldn't do it. They know the statistics. There's statistics they show in the doctor's office. There's the statistics that show it's 3% effective if you do nothing, meaning if you don't exercise, get oxygen, change your diet, change your mental health, emotional, all those other factors. So many factors that go into cancer. It's not one. Cell phones, all those things. So yeah, 75% say they wouldn't do chemo. So that's very telling. If you want to know more about the politics behind cancer, and please don't donate to cancer, I'm telling you right now, don't donate to find the cure for cancer. We have the cure. We have several cures for cancer. What we don't have are doctors who implement them because they have their hands tied. I'm sorry, with all due respect, I've had really nice doctors, but they have their hands tied. It's a political system we live in that's bought and paid for by Big Pharma. And if you want to know more about the politics behind cancer, there's a great series. Doesn't just talk about politics, obviously. Talks about all kinds of things by Ty Bollinger called The Truth About Cancer. It's like a 9-episode DVD set. So that's something I recommend as well. As far as the emotional part, which I just mentioned, if anybody does have cancer or a loved one of yours has cancer, tapping is an amazing tool. Anybody can learn it. It's so easy. You can go on YouTube. You can teach it to yourself. There's no reason everybody shouldn't be doing this. It's using meridian points and tapping, and it's not hard to learn. Sorry if that made a lot of noise. And you can learn how to do that. There's EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or what's called Faster EFT, which is my preferred choice. And it works amazing. So if you have fear of death or fear of hospitals or doctors or anything emotional that's underlying your cancer, it's an amazing tool. So highly recommend that. Again, you're wondering, why should you listen to me? Because I'm dead. But one reason is because I can say whatever I want, so it's kind of nice. And I can tell you the truth. And they can't put me in jail, so there you go. One guy was put in jail for saying on YouTube that apricot seeds can help cure you of cancer as one of many treatments, and he was put in jail for 5 years. That's what we do with our taxpayer dollars. It's crazy. So yeah, I said it. Apricot seeds. It's a good thing to figure out. Find it. It's natural. Do the research. I'm big on telling people to research, because get empowered. Because if your doctor's telling you to get mastectomy or radiation, and you're still under anesthesia like I was, that's not a good time to hear those things and make decisions when you're stressed and you don't know and you're panicked. Don't make decisions like that. You have time. Cancer takes time to develop. We all have precancer cells. If they say, oh, it was precancer cells, forget that. Everybody has precancer cells. Everybody actually has cancer cells. What you need is an immune system to work for you. And there's even more to just having an immune system. I have to say that's one thing I learned, because I have a pretty good immune system in a lot of ways. So what I want to say, I think I hit all those books, Flood Your Body with Oxygen, I think I mentioned that, is what happened to me and why this information that I just came into in the last few months is so important, and how it could be life-changing for you. And if I had this information last year, things could have been different for me. So to explain that, I want to say there's two main causes of cancer. So one is that your metabolism shifts from fatty acids to glucose, and the other one is that you have mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondrial dysfunction means that a part of your cell, I'm going to show this really bad drawing to you, this diagram as best I can. So this is going to show you that there's glucose at the top. It goes into the cell, which is the circle on the bottom, and the fatty acids can go into that cell. They both can go into what's called the Krebs Cycle in the middle, and that creates energy. So you can get energy from glucose or from fatty acids. However, if you go from glucose, if you get glucose and you have a mitochondria that's not functioning properly, which is a part of your cell, it's the part that metabolizes energy, and if it's not working, then it's not going to go into the Krebs cycle this way. It's just going to keep looping around and creating pyruvate and lactate in liver and go back to glucose, and creates this kind of loop, so that basically you're not getting energy into your cells, and the only energy is from glucose. Eventually that will burn you out. and then you can't even get energy from the fatty acids. This is the fatty acids going to the cell creating energy. You can't even do this anymore. So then all these recommendations, they tell you, take all these fatty acids, which is great. It's a great recommendation if you're looking for understanding more about your diet. There's information on that on YouTube, Ketogenic Diet by Dr. Marco Ruggiero. This is written at the end of this video that you'll see his name. Ruggiero is 2 G's, R-U-G-G-I-E-R-O. Incredible scientist, researcher. And Dr. Mercola at mercola.com, he's a wonderful doctor for these kinds of things. They'll tell you, and many others will tell you, you need a high fatty acid diet. So you need coconut oil and olive oil and avocados and the good fats, fish oil, krill oil. Those are great. But if you're taking all that and you're still not feeling better, you're not probably digesting the fatty acids. If you're taking all the vitamin D, which all the doctors, even doctors are now saying, vitamin D is so important, it's so incredibly important, and you're not getting enough sunlight, which you need for vitamin D, not just the little pills, then that's important. But maybe you're taking those pills and you're still not creating vitamin D, and that's because your mitochondria is not functioning properly. So this is what I discovered only after hundreds of hours of research, because there's very few orthomolecular doctors in this country. Most doctors are not studying what happens at a subcellular level. So they're giving you supplements, but those supplements are not actually working in your body. That's what was happening for me for years. So I'm taking vitamin D and all these fatty acids and all the right things. I cut out the carbs and the sugars, and including the fruits and the fruit juices, and still came out pre-diabetic somehow. And that's when I realized, wow, my Krebs cycle is broken. I'm up here. I'm just doing this. I'm not getting the energy from the fatty acids. Otherwise, there's no explanation, because I don't even eat sugar, and I have been very healthy up to now. So that's what's happened for me. And to actually get to where you can get this mitochondria to function again, definition of cancer is the glucose, the metabolism shifts from fatty acids to glucose, and you have a mitochondria that's dysfunctioning. So to get this to function again and to get that energy metabolism to reboot, you need to do 2 things. And this is what I found out last year. And then it took me another half a year to figure out where to get this, the help I needed for that. So one is the oxidative therapies, not oxygen therapies, but oxidative therapies. So Dr. Schellenberger on YouTube and Dr. Rowan on YouTube have excellent YouTube presentations to other doctors. Don't think because you're not a doctor that you're not going to understand this stuff. If you need to watch it 3 times, watch it 3 times, 5 times. I don't care. Get educated, because your doctors will not have the time to do this research. And that's unfortunate, because they're caring, but they just don't have the time. Or make the time, whatever. But that's how it goes. Do your own research. Dr. Frank Schellenberger has a YouTube called Mitochondrial Analysis, and it'll explain this in a lot more depth, but he explains a lot more what goes on. And Dr. Rowan has also a website and his own YouTube presentations, and you can find doctor practitioners who work with oxidative therapies through Dr. Rowan's website. I found a doctor here in Burlington. I'm not in Burlington, Brattleboro, but it's not that feasible. It's expensive. They have to treat the blood with the oxygen. Oxidative therapy goes through the blood. Anyway, you can find out that information. I'm just kind of giving you trailheads to look for it yourself, but there is more things you can do with, like, hydrogen peroxide and other products that are out there with oxygen. Oxygen is really important, though. So that's one thing that's important. But on the other side, if you can't get those therapies and you can't get enough oxygen, because exercise is great, but sometimes that's still not enough when you have cancer. So when that's not going to be, you don't have a doctor who's doing that with you, and you can't get the oxygen you need, and you're not getting the vitamin D, and like I said, the pill is not enough, even if you're taking 10,000 IUs, which I'm taking, it's because of that mitochondria. So to get that functioning, what I found out, this is the really important part, is something called GC-MAF. And GC is a protein in your body, and MAF means macrophage activating factor. So GC-MAF is the ability of your liver to create a protein and a macrophage activating factor. I'm going to actually contradict myself at the end of this video, so bear with me while I'm explaining this. The important part to take home from this is that if you can get that functioning, that mitochondria functioning, by getting that macrophage activating factor functioning in your body, then you can metabolize vitamin D again. Too much vitamin D, if you can't metabolize it, actually creates copper toxicity in your body, which creates estrogen levels that go up. And if you're estrogen positive like I was, that's actually not helping you. So all this vitamin D wasn't really helping me. That being said, it is easier for your body to get vitamin D from the sun, or at least the right kind of tanning booths. Not the magnetic ones, but the other ones. So there's 120 papers, on GC-MAF research. The research is out there. It's amazing. It's so amazing. I will give you statistics from the Research Institute, and they can't fudge their statistics because they're a research institute. They have 25% tumor reduction the first week when they inject this GC-MAF into the tumor, 50% tumor reduction second week, and 75% tumor reduction third week. This is a research institute. It's not a clinic. The clinics were all shut down. All 13 clinics in Europe were shut down almost overnight. David Noakes is another expert on this GC-MAF. You can listen to him. And having said that, they also closed down a number of these places in the United States, but they didn't stop at that. Any doctor that was researching, I'm not saying any, but 9 doctors that happened to have one thing in common. They were all researching GC-MAF, disappeared last year in 2015. 9. 5 of them disappeared in 2 weeks in Florida alone. They disappeared, okay, including Dr. Bradstreet. Dr. Bradstreet, as some people will know, is very famous for having made the connection between thimerosal and the vaccines and autism. And he had, what they don't know about him, however, whether you agree with that or not, is that he had 1,100 autistic patients. 85% of those autistic patients went into remission. Why? Because he was treating them with GC-MAF, and he found out something about nagalase, and that's a whole other story. But then he got disappeared on his way to a picnic to meet his wife. After buying groceries to go on the picnic, he was found in the river with 2 bullets close range in his chest, which is not the kind of way people usually commit suicide, you know, shooting themselves twice in the chest. It was a blatant message to any doctor out there, don't touch this. So you're not going to find any information about it. It was hard for me to find information about it. However, go on YouTube and look it up. Go on Google and look it up. And Dr. Marco Ruggiero, who actually came up with GC-MAF in the form of a yogurt, I'm not kidding, it's a yogurt. It's potentiated enzymes from colostrum. Totally natural, can't patent it, there's no money, ain't gonna happen because there's no profits to be made, and it works. So he came up with it in a yogurt form. Others worked on it and had other kinds of forms, like they're doing the Research Institute. They have injectables, they inject it right into the tumor, so they have different statistics on that. But the point is, the yogurt you can find. You have to Google it, and if you don't find it the first time, Google it again, because Google's kind of weird, and sometimes things disappear, and then you go back a month, 2 months later, and then you find it. So that is important. Look for the GC-MAF yogurt, find out how to get it, even if for Lyme's, for all of these autoimmune disorders. I mean, it's amazing. Find out the research, do your own research, but check that out. Now, a bombshell was just laid on me when I went back 2 days ago to look at this information on YouTube, because some new YouTubes came out with Dr. Marco Ruggiero, and he just had some incredible information about this new thing that he developed, that he just launched about 2 weeks ago, end of May, which is totally legal. I'm so happy. It's FDA approved. There are no side effects except if you're on a blood thinner. Be careful. That would be the only one. And it's 50 times more effective than GC-MAF. I'm probably the last generation that'll die from cancer. He won't call it a cure for cancer. He's too smart. He's not going to get disappeared because of this. It's a supplement. However, it's injectable, and it's very inexpensive, considering that it is a matter of weeks that you need to take it. I'm not saying that out of his mouth, because he can't say those things. He says you have to, it's just on the market, so you have to the research isn't there, but what he does know is it's 50 times more potent than the GC-MAF, because it's nanotechnology and it has a different carrier. It's not a protein, so it doesn't go through the stomach acid. Again, if it's too much information for you to go on to get into your head right now, I understand, but you can go online and you can look for Dr. Marco Ruggiero and on YouTube, and look for his latest talks about his latest developments, and he will tell you more about how the mechanism works for this and why it's so incredibly promising. It's really exciting. I want to mention just before closing a few other things that I did do, and I'm not saying that because they didn't work. Again, they're what kept me alive and energetic and happy, and I've been having a really good life. But these other things included, like I mentioned, the ozone therapy. Royal Rife, another thing to check out on YouTube. Fascinating man. It's like 4-time Nobel laureate. The way doctors used to be into all kinds of fields instead of just being an expert on the knee and just the knee or one hair follicle and only one hair follicle. Well, he had research in lots of areas and developed something called the Rife machine. It's an electromagnetic cold plasma machine. Very interesting. Works on frequencies, so you might look into that. DMSO, there's a book on it. Fascinating. Really, very promising doctor who did hundreds and hundreds of cases of cancer patients he cured with DMSO. It's DMSO. They use it for vets, actually, but it has to be 99%. And you got to research it before you do anything like that, of course. Low-dose naltrexone with alpha-lipoic acid is another really promising protocol. Dr. Burke has his information on that. He used to work for the FDA for like 20 years. Low-dose naltrexone has no side effects except bad breath. I mean, so does garlic, so it's not really what you call a side effect. So that would be an interesting thing to check out. He's out in New Mexico. He's the only one I know that's doing that, but he does help doctors learn how to do it, so you could work with your doctor and him. Low-dose naltrexone with alpha-lipoic acid. Not naltrexone, low-dose naltrexone. It's very different, but it's actually really good for the myelin sheath and for other problems, Parkinson's and other things. Colonics, important, very important. That's your digestive system, that's your immune system. Digestive system equals immune system. Don't forget that. If a doctor says, you have a poor digestive system, but we're going to cure you of cancer, then fire him and get one that knows that the gut is how you get your immune system booted. Again, I mentioned the vitamin D, but again, you can't just get it from a pill form. Probiotics, great, but they're not as effective as if they're in their natural environment as you would get from this yogurt, for instance, GC-MAF yogurt, which has to be made with raw milk, which is, by the way, probably why the U.S. government is so interested in knowing who buys raw milk. Like, why do they care? Because you have to be on a registry now for that. So I think I covered most of my points. I do want to say to not panic. If you're in panic mode, you can't do the research. So tap. Use those resources I said. Go to YouTube, go to Faster EFT, learn how to do it. Tap along. There's 750 demonstrations, so you can just do the tapping along with the person in the demonstration. If they're working on a phobia, even if it's not your phobia, you can learn from that, tapping on the fear of death, tapping on doctors, tapping on all those things. Get the fear out of you. Do the research. Take your time. Figure it out. Cancer clinics are an awesome option as well. I have no regrets with my cancer treatment. I think that saved my life in Mexico when I was there. They have one cancer clinic with some of them use dendritic vaccines, which are amazing. They're based on your individual, so it's made from your white blood cells. So it attacks your specific cancer, which is different than the next person's. Different than the vaccines that they sell here in the United States. They offered me a vaccine that targets one antibody, and it's $30,000 a month, which my insurance would cover, which I think is scandalous. But this one covers many, many antibodies, and it's individuated for you. And they give you 6 months treatment after that. You get to take it home because you have a prescription, so you're allowed to take it home with you and do it. I unfortunately only did 3 months because I was crazy like that, and I went to India for 6 months. So I'm just wrapping up and telling you get information, and if you really don't feel good, get yourself to Mexico, get your immune system back in order. There's lots of clinics to choose from. Some are in hospitals, some are in smaller clinics, some are expensive, some aren't. Hoxsey Treatment Center has a good reputation. There's documentaries on that. You can find out about that. You can fly into San Diego and they'll come and pick you up and drive you over the border. It's really not that hard. It's really very easy, and you get great organic food, and you get to bring somebody for free, and it's a pretty awesome deal, honestly. So I thank those people in Mexico for everything, and thank you for listening. I hope some of this information helps to save somebody's life. Like I said, Dr. Marco Ruggiero's research is really important. He has this new development that's 50 times stronger than GC-MAF, just came out 2 weeks ago. Find out about it, spread the word to your loved ones, and don't don't die from cancer. It's just not worth it. You don't need to. It's not necessary. That being said, I feel blessed with the time that I've had and to be here today and share this information with you. Thank you.